The bottle tilted. Clear liquid caught the lamplight as it moved toward the baby's mouth. 6 months old. Helpless. Hungry. The rubber nipple touched his lips. Don't give him that. Isla's scream tore through the kitchen like glass shattering. 8 years old, and she knew she'd seen this before. Too many times in the 4 months since her father had married this woman. Her small feet slapped against cold tile, arms outstretched, desperate, reaching for her baby brother before poison touched his tongue. Victoria's hand shot out. The shove came hard, brutal. Isla's thin body flew backward through the air. Her shoulder blade struck the cabinet corner, wood against bone, sharp impact that drove breath from lungs. Pain exploded across her back like lightning. She crumpled to the floor in a heap. Blonde hair tangled across her face. The world tilted sideways, edges going gray and fuzzy. But her eyes stayed locked on Finn. The baby whimpered. His tiny hand reached toward the bottle with the desperate hunger that had become his constant companion. Ribs stood out like piano keys, beneath translucent skin, cheeks hollow, eyes too large in a face grown gaunt from calculated starvation. Victoria's lips curved upward, not a smile, something colder, crueler, the expression of someone who took pleasure in suffering. The bottle moved closer to Finn's mouth. Then, the front door opened. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Expensive Italian shoes on imported marble. The sharp click, click, click of a man who'd built empires from nothing, who commanded boardrooms across 3 continents, who'd been flying for 18 hours straight from a business deal in Chicago. James Hartley had come home early. Victoria's face transformed in the space between heartbeats. The cold cruelty melted into something soft, concerned, maternal. The bottle lowered smoothly. Her free hand flew to her throat in a perfect gesture of startled surprise. But Isla saw the shift. She'd watched her stepmother perform this transformation dozens of times over the past 4 months. Watched the monster become the martyr, the abuser become the victim, the torturer become the loving mother. James appeared in the kitchen doorway, tall frame filling the space, grey threading through dark hair at his temples. Tie loosened, exhaustion carved into the lines bracketing his mouth and eyes. He saw his daughter crumpled on the floor. He saw his infant son in his wife's arms. He saw the bottle in her hand. Something in his expression shifted, sharpened. What happened here? Victoria's voice went high, sweet as poisoned honey. Oh, James, you're home early, darling. I wasn't expecting you until tomorrow morning. She shifted Finn against her shoulder with practiced ease, protective, maternal. Poor Isla tripped over her own feet again. You know how clumsy children can be at this age. Isla stared at her father from the floor, 8 years old, drowning in secrets that weighed more than her small body could carry. Her back screaming where bone had met wood. Her hands bearing scars from burns he'd never questioned because she wore long sleeves even in summer heat. Say something. Tell him. Be brave like Mommy said. But the words lodged in her throat like broken glass. Sharp, cutting, impossible to speak. Because Victoria's eyes found hers across the kitchen space, and in that gaze lived a promise. A threat. The same words she'd whispered in darkness 100 times before. Tell him, and Finn disappears forever. I fell, Isla whispered, voice so small it barely carried across the room. I'm sorry, Daddy. I'm sorry I fell. The lie tasted bitter on her tongue. James moved toward his daughter. Expensive suit, designer shoes, hands that signed million-dollar contracts, but seemed to have forgotten how to comfort his own child. Not since Eleanor died. Not since grief had consumed him whole, and work had become his only escape from memories that haunted every corner of their home. He crouched beside Isla, bringing himself to her eye level. Let me see your back, sweetheart. She turned slowly, lifted her shirt with trembling fingers that she couldn't quite steady. The bruise bloomed dark purple across her small shoulder blade. Fresh, angry, the edges already deepening toward black in a way that spoke of significant force. That wasn't from a fall. James knew injuries. In his business dealings, he'd reviewed enough workplace accident reports and insurance claims to recognize the difference between accident and assault, between tripping and being struck with deliberate violence. His jaw tightened into a hard line. He looked at Victoria with new eyes. She laughed, the sound light, dismissive, perfectly calibrated. Yesterday afternoon, she was running in the hallway, like I've told her not to, and crashed straight into the door frame. I put ice on it immediately. You know how easily children bruise at this age. That happened yesterday. Yes, yesterday afternoon. She was playing too rough despite my warnings. James studied the bruise again. The coloring, the definition, the way the purple remained vivid and bright without any fading to green or yellow at the edges. That bruise was hours old, 3 or 4 at most, not a full day. His breath caught in his chest. The bottle, he said quietly, still kneeling beside Isla, not looking up at Victoria. What are you feeding him? Formula, of course. What else would I feed a baby? Oh, may I see it? Something flickered across Victoria's face, gone too fast to name. Fear, anger, calculation. James, this is ridiculous. I've been caring for these children for months now. The bottle, Victoria. She handed it over, smile tight, jaw clenched beneath the false sweetness. James unscrewed the cap with deliberate care. The smell hit him first, sharp, chemical. Nothing remotely like the sweet, milky scent of formula he remembered from Isla's infancy 8 years ago. He poured a small amount into his cupped palm. Clear, thin, wrong in every way. He touched it to his tongue before he could second-guess the impulse. The taste confirmed what his nose had already told him. Not formula, not even water. Something that burned slightly going down. Something with the unmistakable bite of cheap alcohol. Is this vodka? The words came out strangled, disbelieving. Did you put vodka in my 6-month-old son's bottle? Don't be absurd. Victoria's composure cracked like thin ice, voice sharp now, defensive. It's water with a touch of gripe water. Mothers have used it for generations to soothe fussy babies, perfectly harmless. Gripe water hasn't contained alcohol since the early 1980s. I make my own mixture. It's a family recipe. You're giving my 6-month-old son alcohol. The words hung in the kitchen like smoke, thick, acrid, choking. Isla made a small sound, quickly stifled, a whimper she couldn't quite contain. Finn started to cry, a weak mewling sound that didn't seem nearly loud enough for a healthy 6-month-old infant. James, you're overreacting. Victoria's voice had gone hard, cold, the mask slipping further with each passing second. You're never here. You have absolutely no idea how difficult it is. A baby who cries constantly. A daughter who's always underfoot. Sometimes they need help settling down. Help settling down. James stood, moved to Victoria in 3 long strides. Took Finn from her arms despite her protests and attempts to hold on. The baby was light. Too light. He should weigh more. Should feel substantial in his father's arms. Instead, he felt like holding air wrapped in skin. Like lifting a bird. Fragile. Breakable. Wrong. James pressed Finn against his chest. Felt the rapid flutter of his son's heart beating too fast. The sharpness of ribs through the thin onesie. The way Finn's small body seemed to fold into nothing against him. How much does he weigh? I don't know, I haven't weighed him recently. The pediatrician's office called me last week. They said Finn missed his 6-month checkup. You told me you'd taken him. Victoria's face went carefully blank. I must have forgotten to reschedule. They said you'd cancel 3 appointments over the past month. I've been busy. Too busy to take my son to the doctor. James's voice dropped to that dangerous tone he used in boardrooms when someone had made a critical, unforgivable mistake. Our son, you said. You're his mother now. Isn't that what you wanted when you married me? Someone to replace Eleanor. someone to care for my children so I could focus on building my business. The cruelty in her voice shocked him into stillness. I never said that. Didn't you? Victoria stepped closer, chin lifted, defiant now that the mask had begun to disintegrate. Or have you forgotten how desperately you needed someone after Eleanor died? How you begged me to help with these children? How grateful you were that I take on the burden of another woman's offspring? James stared at this woman he'd married, this woman he trusted with his children's lives, and realized with creeping horror that he didn't know her at all. Who was she beneath the smiles and carefully chosen words? What monster had he invited into their home, Isla? His voice came out hoarse, rough. Go to your room. But Daddy. Now sweetheart, please. He heard her scramble up from the floor, heard her feet on the stairs, quick and light, heard the soft click of her bedroom door closing. Only then did he speak again. I want the truth, right now. What have you been doing to my children? Victoria laughed, actually laughed. The sound echoed off the kitchen tiles, hollow, humorless, chilling. Your children, she said with venom in every syllable. Always your children, your precious Eleanor's children. Do you have any idea what it's like? Living in a dead woman's shadow every single day, caring for a baby who screams constantly, a daughter who looks at me like I'm a monster, no matter what I do. That doesn't explain why my son is malnourished. Children get thin sometimes, not like this, and the bruises on Isla. Children get bruises playing, not from being hit. I've never hit her. But her eyes slid away as she spoke, couldn't hold his gaze, couldn't maintain the lie while looking at him directly. James felt rage building in his chest, hot, terrible, the kind of anger that could destroy careers and ruin lives. But he forced it down through sheer will, forced himself to think clearly. He was good at reading people, had built his fortune on understanding motivations and hidden agendas, on seeing the lies beneath polished surfaces. Victoria was hiding something worse than what he'd already discovered. I'm calling Dr. Thornton, he said with absolute finality. He's coming here tonight, right now. He'll examine both children. It's after midnight. I don't care. You're being dramatic. Am I? James shifted Finn gently in his arms. The baby had gone quiet, too quiet. His eyes glazed in a way that seemed profoundly wrong. Because my son looks like he's been systematically starved. My daughter is covered in bruises and terrified. And you just tried to feed a 6-month-old infant alcohol. It was barely anything. Get out of my sight. The words came quiet, deadly, final. Go to the guest room. Don't go near my children. We'll talk tomorrow after the doctor's been here. Victoria's face went red, then white, bloodless. You can't throw me out of my own bedroom. Watch me. They stood there in the kitchen, locked in a battle of wills. The clock on the wall ticking too loud in the silence. Finn's breath shallow and rapid against James's chest. Somewhere upstairs, Isla was probably pressed against her door, listening with her heart in her throat. Finally, Victoria spun on her heel, stalked away with rage radiating from every line of her body. Her footsteps pounded up the stairs. A door slammed hard enough to rattle the windows in their frames. James stood there, holding Finn, feeling his son's too rapid heartbeat, wondering how everything had gone so catastrophically wrong without him noticing. How had he been so blind, so willfully, criminally blind? But to understand how an 8-year-old girl became the only shield between evil and innocence, we need to go back before Victoria. Before the darkness descended on the Hartley house like fog rolling off cold water. Back to when Isla was still 6.5, when her biggest worry was whether she'd get the purple bicycle for her birthday, when the world still made sense and mothers didn't die, and evil stepmothers existed only in fairy tales. The birthday party happened on a bright April afternoon. Balloons tied to the mailbox bobbed in the spring breeze. Pink and purple Isla's favorite colors. The kitchen smelled like vanilla cake and Eleanor's special frosting recipe, the one with a touch of almond extract that made everything taste like love made edible. Ella wore a new dress, yellow with tiny daisies scattered across the fabric. Eleanor had spent 3 evenings hand-sewing the hem shorter because the store version had dragged on the ground. Make a wish, baby girl, Eleanor said softly. Her hand rested on her very swollen belly. 7 months pregnant now, glowing despite the exhaustion that had started creeping in around the edges of her smile. Isla squeezed her eyes shut tight, thought hard about what she wanted most in the entire world. I wish, she paused, opened one eye to peek at her mother through blonde lashes. I wish the baby is healthy and we're all happy forever and ever. That's 2 wishes, James teased gently, but his eyes were suspiciously wet. Then they both have to come true, Isla declared with the absolute certainty of childhood. That's how magic works. 2 wishes together make them extra strong. She blew out all 7 candles in one breath. Eleanor pulled her daughter close, kissed the top of her blonde head, breathed in the scent of her shampoo. I love you so much. You know that, right? I know, Mommy. You're going to be the best big sister in the whole world. I'm going to teach him everything. How to read books, how to catch fireflies in jars, how to make the best snow angels, how to be brave. James raised an eyebrow with exaggerated surprise. Pretty confident it's a boy. I know it is. I can feel it in my heart. And she was right. 3 months later, on a humid July night, when the air felt thick enough to cut Finn, Michael Hartley came into the world, weighing 7 pounds 2 ounces, screaming his lungs out with healthy fury. Perfect. Beautiful. Eleanor held him for the first time in the delivery room, tears streaming down her face. Look what we made, James. Look at our son. But something was wrong. The bleeding wouldn't stop. Nurses moved with sudden urgency that sent ice through James's veins. Calm professional voices that couldn't quite hide the fear underneath. Dr. Thornton's hands working fast. Eleanor's face going pale, paler, grey. James, she whispered through the lips going colorless. Something's wrong. He gripped her hand hard enough to hurt. You're okay. You're going to be okay, I promise. But he was lying. Postpartum hemorrhage. Massive. Catastrophic. Unstoppable. Despite everything they tried. They attempted every intervention in the medical handbook. Transfusions, medications, emergency surgery. For 2 weeks, Eleanor clung to life by threads growing increasingly fragile. She held Finn when she had strength, whispered to him about all the things they'd do together, all the places they'd go, all the love she had waiting for him to grow into. Isla visited every single day after school, let out, sat beside the hospital bed, holding her mother's hand, trying so hard to be brave, even as her world crumbled. Mommy, when are you coming home? Soon, baby, soon. But they both knew it was a lie that tasted bitter. On a Tuesday morning in early August, with rain drumming against the hospital windows and Finn sleeping in the nursery down the hall, Eleanor Hartley took her last breath. Her final words to Isla, whispered with the last dregs of strength she possessed. Protect him. Promise me. Promise you'll protect your brother no matter what. I promise, Mommy. I promise forever. Eleanor smiled, squeezed Isla's hand one final time with fingers gone cold, and then she was gone into the vast silence. The funeral happened on a grey Thursday that matched the grief. Grey sky, grey suits, grey faces of mourners who couldn't quite meet James's hollow eyes. Isla wore a black dress someone had bought because she didn't own anything appropriate for burying her mother. It was too big. The shoulders hung loose. The hem dragged on the ground no matter how many times James tried to pin it up. She held Finn during the service. 2 weeks old, so impossibly tiny in her 7-year-old arms. He slept through everything. Didn't know he'd never remember the woman who'd given him life and died bringing him into the world. Father O'Brien spoke about eternal rest and God's mysterious plan and being reunited in heaven where there was no more pain or sorrow. Isla didn't understand any of it. All she knew was that her mother was in a wooden box being lowered into the ground, and she'd never hear her voice again, never feel her hand stroking her hair at bedtime, never smell her perfume, that light floral scent that meant safety and home and everything good. James stood like a statue beside the grave, didn't cry, didn't speak, just stared at the coffin as if he could will Eleanor back to life through sheer force of desperation. After came the house full of people. Neighbors bringing casseroles in glass dishes, friends from St. Michael's offering condolences in hushed tones, everyone speaking in whispers and patting Isla's head like she was a puppy instead of a grieving child. Mrs. Whitfield from next door, grey-haired and soft-voiced with kind eyes, pulled Isla aside into the quiet hallway. "You're being so brave, sweetheart." "I don't feel brave." "Brave people never do, dear heart. They just do what needs doing anyway, even when they're terrified." Isla looked at Finn sleeping peacefully in his bassinet, unaware that the world had ended. "I have to take care of him now. Your father will help." But James had already disappeared into his study. Door closed, lights off, drowning in grief too big to face. And that's where he stayed. Days became weeks. Weeks became the slow crawl toward autumn. James threw himself into work with the desperation of a drowning man grabbing for anything to keep from going under the dark water. Chicago for 3 days, Boston for a week, Singapore for 2 weeks that stretched into 3. Isla learned to change diapers, heat bottles at 3 a.m. when Finn woke crying, rock him back to sleep while singing the lullabies Eleanor used to sing. 7 years old and playing mother to a newborn. Mrs. Whitfield helped when she could, brought groceries, did laundry, cooked simple meals. But she had her own life, her own family, demanding her time and attention. Finn grew despite everything, hit milestones right on schedule, smiled his first real smile at Isla, not at James, who was in London when it happened and missed it entirely. The house felt empty. Eleanor's clothes still hung in the closet untouched. Her coffee mug still sat on the kitchen counter where she'd left it that last morning before going to the hospital. Her books still lay spine up on the nightstand, pages marked at places she'd never finish reading. James couldn't bear to move anything that belonged to Eleanor, couldn't bear to stay in the house with her ghost either. So he left, over and over and over, chasing deals, building empires, running from memories that haunted at every corner of their home. And Isla just tried to keep Finn alive and happy, while missing her mother so much, it felt like drowning in cold water that never stopped rising. Then, Victoria appeared like a serpent in their garden. It was a Tuesday in late October, 2 months after Eleanor's death. Isla was making lunch peanut butter sandwich for herself, warmed bottle for Finn, when the doorbell rang with startling loudness in the quiet house. A woman stood on the porch, tall, dark hair pulled into a perfect bun without a strand out of place, expensive coat that probably cost more than Mrs. Whitfield made in a month, smile that seemed practiced in a mirror. "Hello, you must be Isla. I'm Victoria Ashford. I worked with your mother at the hospital." Isla blinked up at her. "You knew my mommy." "I did, sweetheart. She was wonderful, so kind to everyone she met." Victoria's smile widened to show very white teeth. "I heard about what happened. I'm so terribly sorry. I wanted to wait a respectful time before visiting, but I've been thinking about you and your father and the new baby. Constantly. Is your father home?" "He's in Boston." "Oh." Victoria's face arranged itself into concern. "Are you here alone with the baby?" "Mrs. Whitfield checks on us every day." "That's good, but still, a 7-year-old shouldn't have so much responsibility weighing on such small shoulders." Victoria tilted her head like a bird examining prey. "May I come in?" was to make sure you're both okay. Your mother would want someone looking after you. Isla hesitated. Stranger danger. Eleanor had taught her about that. Never let strangers in the house when you're alone. But this woman knew Mommy, had worked with her at the hospital. "Okay, but just for a minute." Victoria stepped inside, looked around with sharp eyes that seemed to catalog and calculate everything they saw. The unwashed dishes piled in the sink, the mountain of laundry waiting to be folded, the toys scattered across the floor, Finn crying from his crib upstairs in that newborn wail that meant he was hungry. "Your brother?" Isla nodded quickly. "He just woke up. I was making his bottle when you rang the bell." "Let me help you, sweetheart." And she did help. Victoria heated the bottle with practiced efficiency, picked up Finn with the ease of someone who'd handled babies before, fed him while Isla watched, torn between relief and something that felt uncomfortably like betrayal. Like letting someone else care for Finn meant she was breaking her promise to Eleanor. "You're doing an amazing job," Victoria said softly as Finn drank. "But this is far too much for a little girl. Your father needs help. Real help. He's very busy with work. I'm sure he is, darling. Grief affects people differently." Victoria's voice was gentle, understanding, perfectly calibrated. Some people run from it, throw themselves into anything to avoid feeling the pain. Isla knew with sudden certainty that was exactly what James was doing. "What do you do when you're sad?" she asked in a small voice. "I try to help others. It makes me feel better, makes me feel like I'm doing something good in the world." Victoria looked down at Finn with an expression Isla couldn't quite read. "Your brother is beautiful. He has your mother's eyes. Really put the shape, the color. Same exact shade of blue-green." Ella hadn't noticed before. But maybe Victoria was right. Maybe Finn did have mommy's eyes hidden in his tiny face. "I'd like to help you," Victoria said carefully. "If that's okay with you, come by a few times a week. Help with the baby. Give you a break so you can actually be a child again. I don't know. Daddy might. Let me talk to him. Give him my number. I'm sure once he knows I worked with Eleanor, he'll be grateful for the assistance. He shouldn't have to do this alone." Neither should you. It seemed so reasonable, so kind. Looking back years later, Isla would wonder how she'd missed it. The calculation behind Victoria's eyes, the way her smile never quite reached her gaze, the too careful way she held Finn like he was a prop in a play rather than a precious child who deserved love. But at 7, grieving her mother, drowning in responsibility far too heavy for small shoulders to carry, Isla was simply grateful. Someone was offering to help. Someone who knew mommy. It felt like a gift from heaven. So she gave Victoria James's phone number and set in motion everything that came after. Victoria called James that very night. Isla listened from the top of the stairs, pressed against the banister. Heard her father's voice coming muffled from his study. Tired, defeated, lost. "Yes, I remember Eleanor mentioning you. No, I had no idea things were so difficult here. Really, you'd be willing to. That's incredibly generous of you. Tuesday. Yes, that would be very helpful. Thank you so much." When he hung up, there was a long silence. Then the sound of quiet crying. James didn't cry. Isla had never heard him cry. Not at the funeral. Not in the 2 months since Eleanor died. But he was crying now in the darkness of his study. And somehow that terrified her more than anything else. Tuesday came with the autumn chill in the air. Victoria arrived at 9 a.m. precisely. Perfectly dressed, hair perfect, makeup perfect. She brought groceries and fresh flowers and a kind smile that seemed warm. "Mr. Hartley, I'm so glad I can help your family." James shook her hand like she was a life raft in stormy seas. "Thank you. You have no idea what this means to us." "I do actually. I lost someone 2 years ago. I understand how it feels to drown in grief." They talked while Isla fed Finn his bottle in the corner. Adult conversation, careful, polite, dancing around the raw wound of Eleanor's absence. Victoria came back Thursday, then the following Monday. By early November, she was there 4 days a week. She was good at it all, efficient in ways that made the house run smoothly again. The house sparkled. Finn was always fed changed content. James started traveling slightly less, knowing someone competent was caring for his children. At Thanksgiving, Victoria cooked an entire feast, turkey and stuffing and 3 kinds of pie. Not Eleanor's recipes, but good, different, new. James looked at her across the table with something like hope flickering in his eyes. "I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done for us." "You don't need to thank me, James. I care about these children deeply." At Christmas, Victoria put up a tree, decorated it with white lights and silver ornaments. Elegant, sophisticated, nothing like Eleanor's chaotic collection of handmade decorations and strings of colored lights that blinked. Isla missed the old tree desperately, But she didn't say anything because Victoria seemed to be making Daddy happy again. In late January, James took Victoria to dinner at an expensive restaurant downtown. In February, they went to the theater. In early March, James called Isla into his study, sat her down in the big leather chair, looked at her with eyes that pleaded for understanding. Isla, sweetheart, I need to talk to you about something important. Her stomach dropped. Okay. I know it's only been 8 months since Mommy died. I know that's not very long. He took her hands in his. But Victoria has been so wonderful to us. She loves you and Finn, and I think Mommy would want us to be happy again, to be a family. The words she'd been dreading. I've asked Victoria to marry me, and she said yes. Isla felt the room tilt. Do you love her? The question came out small, fragile. James paused, struggled with honesty. I care about her very deeply, and I need help, Isla. I can't do this alone. Can't raise you and Finn alone while running the company. Victoria wants to be your mother now, wants to take care of you. That wasn't the same as love, but Isla was 7. What did she know about love anyway? And if Victoria made Daddy less sad, made him stay home more, wasn't that good? Okay, she whispered finally. James pulled her into a tight hug. Thank you, baby girl. Thank you for being so understanding and mature about this. The wedding happened in late April. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. Father O'Brien performed it at St. Michael's Church, the same church where they'd held Eleanor's funeral barely 9 months earlier. Isla wore a pink dress, held a small basket of rose petals, stood beside her father while he promised to love and cherish Victoria Ashford until death parted them. Victoria wore white, smiled radiantly, kissed James like she meant it with all her heart. At the reception, Mrs. Whitfield pulled Isla aside with worried eyes. How are you doing, sweetheart? Really doing? Okay, I guess. You tell me if you weren't right, if something was wrong. You know you can always come to me. Yes, ma'am. But it was a lie Isla would regret for months to come, because even then, some instinct deep in her gut whispered warnings. It was in the way Victoria looked at James when he wasn't watching, calculating and cold. It was in the way she held Finn correctly, but without warmth. It was in the moment at the reception when everyone else was distracted by cake and champagne, when Victoria leaned down close to Isla's ear. Things are going to change now, little girl. You understand I'm in charge, not you, me, and you'll do exactly what I say when I say it. Her voice wasn't kind anymore, and her smile had sharp edges like broken glass. The honeymoon lasted 3 days. James took Victoria to a cabin in the mountains of Vermont, left Isla and Finn with Mrs. Whitfield for the long weekend. When they returned, James seemed lighter, happier. Victoria seemed pleased with herself in a way that made Isla's stomach hurt. Tuesday morning came. James had an unavoidable meeting in Boston, had to leave at 6 a.m. to catch his flight. Victoria stood at the window, watching, waiting. When the sound of his car engine faded completely down the street, she turned around with a smile that made ice form in Isla's veins. Tuesday, 6:15 a.m. Isla was in the kitchen making breakfast like she did every morning, pouring cereal into her bowl, getting Finn's bottle ready from the refrigerator where bottles were pre-made. Good morning, Isla said, trying so hard to be cheerful, trying to make this new family work. Victoria crossed the kitchen in 3 swift steps. The slap came so fast, Isla didn't see it coming. Pain exploded across her left cheek like a bomb detonating. Stars burst behind her eyes in white-hot flashes. She stumbled backward, hit the counter hard. Her cereal bowl crashed to the floor, shattering into pieces. Clean that up immediately. Isla's hand flew to her face. The skin burned hot beneath her fingers. She could feel the imprint of Victoria's hand like a brand. What why? Another slap, harder this time, the other cheek. Because you made a mess, because you're loud, because I felt like it. Victoria's voice was flat, emotionless, dead. Here's what you need to understand, little girl. Your father belongs to me now. This house is mine. Everything in it is mine, including you and that crying infant upstairs. But Daddy, your daddy isn't here, and he won't be here for 3 days. Victoria leaned down until her face was inches from Isla's. I hate children, especially other women's children. But I'll tolerate you because I need your father's money and his big house and his important name. You'll do exactly what I say when I say it. You'll be quiet, invisible, convenient. Tears streamed down Isla's face, burning the skin where she'd been struck. If you tell your father anything at all, I'll make that baby disappear. Foster care, adoption. He'll be gone and you'll never see him again. Never. Do you understand me? Isla nodded frantically, too terrified to speak or breathe. Say it. I understand. Good girl. Victoria's smile returned. Sweet, maternal, completely fake. Now clean up this mess. And remember, one single word to Daddy and Finn vanishes forever. I have connections. I can make it happen. And it will be all your fault. She walked upstairs, humming a cheerful tune. Isla sank to the floor, hands shaking so badly she could barely pick up the broken pieces of her cereal bowl, face burning where she'd been hit twice, hard. The mask had come off completely. And underneath was a monster. The real nightmare was just beginning. Here's the condensed version, 2,000 words. Dr. Thornton arrived at 1:30 a.m. Medical bag, heavy in one weathered hand. Grey hair, sleep disheveled. But his eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. He'd delivered both Isla and Finn. Held Eleanor's hand through both labors. Carried her coffin at the funeral. He was family. Show me, he said quietly. James carried Finn to the living room, laid him gently on the sofa, the baby's eyes half closed, breathing too shallow. Dr. Thornton's hands moved with practiced efficiency, checking reflexes, listening, measuring, weighing. His journal notes grew progressively angrier. The scale showed 12 pounds 4 ounces. At 6 months, Finn should weigh 18 pounds minimum. 6 pounds stolen by calculated starvation. Severe malnutrition, significant dehydration, muscle tone extremely poor. He pointed to Finn's arm. This bruise, see these 4 ovals, finger impressions from being grabbed roughly. James saw them with sickening clarity. What here? The doctor lifted Finn's onesie. Bruises scattered along ribs, fresh purple, faded yellow-green. Someone's been hurting this child systematically. The room tilted. Isla next, Dr. Thornton said grimly. She came down slowly, long sleeves despite the warm house, face pale as milk. Just checking you're healthy, sweetie, the doctor said gently. She sat, submitted with the quiet compliance of a child who'd learned not to protest. 5 bruises in various healing stages. Purple, green, yellow, brown. A timeline of violence on skin, underweight. Not as severely as Finn, but alarming. Scars on her palms, burns. How did you get these scars, Isla? I don't remember. The bruise on your back. I fell. Your arm. I fell. Mechanical. Rehearsed. A child trained to lie through terror. Dr. Thornton looked at James. This child had been conditioned. Isla. James took her hands, fragile as bird bones. I promise on Mommy's memory, nothing bad will happen if you tell the truth. Has Victoria been hurting you? Her face crumpled. Tears spilled in silent streams. No sound. She'd learned to cry without being heard. She said if I told she'd make Finn disappear forever. Said it would be my fault. James pulled her close, felt her shaking. Oh baby, I'm so sorry. The words poured out now, water from a broken dam. She hits me when you're gone, locks me in my room without dinner, puts bad things in Finn's bottle to make him sleep, says we ruined her life, says Mommy should have taken us when she died. Each word a knife. Sometimes she doesn't feed Finn all day. He cries from hunger. Then she gives him the bad bottle and he gets sleepy and weird. I'm so scared he'll die, that it'll be my fault for not protecting him better. The scars, Dr. Thornton asked quietly. I tried to give Finn extra formula. He was crying so much. Victoria caught me. She turned the stove really hot, then pressed my hands on the burner. Maybe 5 seconds. It felt like forever. Dr. Thornton's hands clenched. 32 years in pediatrics. He'd seen much. But deliberate cruelty to children still shook him. I'm calling the police. Wait. James's eyes were red. Right now, it's her word against Isla's. She'll deny everything. We need undeniable proof. These children need protection. They'll have it, I swear. I'm not leaving them alone with her for 1 second, but I need to make sure she pays, that she never hurts another child. Dr. Thornton nodded slowly. I'll document everything, photographs, measurements, reports. Make copies. Somewhere she can't destroy them. They spent 2 hours documenting in painful detail every bruise, every scar, every sign of neglect. Isla fell asleep eventually, exhausted from crying, from carrying secrets too heavy. At 3:47 a.m., James's phone buzzed, his assistant, calling from Singapore. Sir, urgent news. The household accounts you asked me to monitor, there have been significant unauthorized withdrawals. Over $200,000 in 4 months. Transferred to Victoria's account, then moved offshore to the Cayman Islands. James's knuckles went white. She's been stealing. There's more. I did background verification we should have done before marriage. Her employment history doesn't check out. The hospital has no record of Victoria Ashford as a nurse. Ice formed in James's stomach. I kept digging. She did work there as a pharmacy technician. Unlicensed. She was terminated 4 months before Eleanor's death. For what? Stealing controlled medications, morphine. Eleanor, as head of pediatric pharmacy oversight, discovered it and filed the complaint. Victoria lost her job, her certification, any chance in healthcare. Blacklisted. The world stopped. Eleanor got Victoria fired. 4 months before your wife's death. Then Victoria showed up at your door. This was calculated revenge. James closed his eyes, pieces clicking into an ugly picture. Send everything, every transaction, every inconsistency, all documented. He looked at his sleeping children. He hadn't married a woman who'd failed under stress. He'd married a predator who'd targeted his family for destruction. Morning came too fast. James took Finn to St. Mary's Hospital at 7 a.m., where Eleanor had worked, where Victoria had stolen. The pediatric team confirmed everything Dr. Thornton found. And more. Finn was admitted to ICU immediately. IV fluids, monitors beeping, nurses moving efficiently. Dr. Sarah Okonwo, head of pediatrics, tall with grey threaded black hair, pulled James aside with barely contained fury. I'm legally mandated to report this to Child Protective Services. This infant has life-threatening malnutrition. Alcohol poisoning over time can cause serious developmental damage to a 6-month-old brain. Report everything. I want full investigation. CPS arrived that afternoon. Janet Torres, clipboard, tired eyes, the overwhelmed face of a broken system. James told her everything. Dr. Thornton's reports, stolen money, false employment history, Victoria's web of lies. We'll need to interview your daughter. Inspect your home. Whatever you need, prosecute her fully. Mr. Hartley. Janet's voice was gentle but honest. Cases like this are difficult. Without direct witnesses or video evidence, it's one word against another's. She'll claim the children are lying, that you're framing her. We need ironclad evidence. Then we'll get it. James made calls. Mrs. Rosa Martinez arrived within 45 minutes. Hands wringing. Tears streaming. I wanted to tell you so many times, but Victoria threatened me, said she'd have me deported. I don't have proper papers. She said I'd never see my own children again. I was so afraid. Tell me now. I saw her hit Miss Isla 3 times. Hard slaps. Once I found Isla locked in the hallway closet all night. Victoria said it was punishment for breaking a vase. Mrs. Martinez's voice broke. She barely fed Finn. I found empty bottles in the trash, water instead of formula, sometimes with that chemical-smelling liquid. To save money. No sir, She was spending it on herself. I saw credit card bills, 45,000 on designer clothes, 12,000 on jewelry, expensive restaurants when you traveled. She used household money while your children starved. Will you testify? Yes, sir. Those babies need someone to speak truth. More witnesses came forward. Isla's teacher confirmed dramatic changes, withdrawn, anxious, flinching at loud noises, falling asleep at her desk. The school counselor had seen Isla hoarding food, stuffing crackers in her pockets. We called several times for parent meetings. Miss Sullivan said guilt heavy. Victoria always answered, said everything was fine. Isla was just adjusting. She was so convincing. I should have pushed harder. I failed that child. The gardener had seen Victoria grab Isla roughly, drag her, throw her against the wall hard enough to dent drywall. A neighbor had heard screaming late at night, child crying for hours. She'd considered calling but talked herself out of it. The liquor store owner remembered Victoria clearly. Every week, cheapest vodka, cash, always alone. Evidence mounted piece by piece. But James knew it wasn't enough yet. They needed something undeniable. The breakthrough came from Isla herself. Day 3. Finn stabilized. Janet Torres, Eberntakamekin, interviewed Isla with a child psychologist present. Quiet hospital room, soft lighting, comfortable chairs, tissues ready. Isla, we need you to tell us what happened, your own words. Take your time. Isla looked small, clutching Eleanor's bunny. Victoria hurt me. She hurt Finn for 4 whole months. How did she hurt you? And Isla told them everything. Slapped the first day James left after the wedding. Locked in the closet 6 hours for breaking a glass. Denied dinner 3 days straight for crying. Burns from trying to feed Finn extra formula. Forced to kneel on uncooked rice 2 hours until her knees bled. Vodka in Finn's bottles to make him sleep all day. Finding Finn blue and unresponsive after an extra strong dose. Every horrific detail spilled out like poison from a wound. Why didn't you tell your father? Because Victoria said if I told anyone, she'd make Finn disappear forever. Foster care across the country. I'd never see him again. My fault for not staying quiet. Isla's voice broke. I promised Mommy I'd protect him right before she died. So I had to keep quiet even when she hurt me. Keeping Finn safe was more important than anything. Janet Torres excused herself, left crying. When she returned, her expression was steel. Isla, you're one of the bravest children I've ever met. Janet Torres had to excuse herself, left the room with tears streaming down her face. When she returned, her expression was the steel. Isla, you're one of the bravest children I've ever met. What you did, protecting your brother at such great cost to yourself, that's extraordinary. I wasn't brave, Isla whispered. I was just so scared all the time. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared, sweetheart. It means doing what's right even when you're terrified. And you did that for 4 months. You kept your brother alive. After the interview, Janet pulled James aside. That child's testimony is powerful, but defense attorneys will try to discredit her, say she's lying for attention, that she resents Victoria. We need more. Do you have any idea if Victoria might have created any kind of documentation of her abuse? Why would she document it? Control, insurance. Some abusers keep records to use as threats. See, you're so terrible that even I had to document it. It's psychological manipulation. James felt something click in his mind. Victoria's laptop. She kept it locked in the guest room where she'd been staying since the confrontation. I might know where to look. With Detective Rachel Porter present and a proper search warrant obtained with impressive speed, they entered the guest room that evening. Victoria's laptop sat on the desk, locked with a password. It took the police tech specialist less than 20 minutes to crack it. What they found made everyone in the room go silent with horror. 47 video files, organized by date in a folder labeled Insurance. They watched the first one. Victoria had recorded herself berating Isla for 10 straight minutes, calling her worthless, stupid, a burden, telling her that Eleanor had gotten cancer deliberately to escape having such a disappointing daughter. "Repeat after me." Victoria's voice came from the laptop speakers. "I'm sorry I'm alive." And Isla's small voice shaking with tears. "I'm sorry I'm alive." Again. "I'm sorry I'm alive." Louder. "I'm sorry I'm alive." Isla repeated the phrase 53 times in that one video. Victoria laughed during several repetitions. The second video showed Finn lying in his crib, crying weakly. For 6 straight hours, the video ran. Victoria had set up the camera and walked away. Let him cry until he had no voice left, until he finally passed out from exhaustion. The third video showed the moment Victoria burned Isla's hands. Audio and visual evidence of deliberate child torture. Video 4 showed Victoria mixing vodka into formula bottles while talking directly to the camera. "This is what you do when you need peace and quiet. A little vodka, they sleep like the dead. No crying, no fussing." It's brilliant, really. There were 47 videos total. A complete documentation of 4 months of systematic abuse. Detective Porter's hands shook as she closed the laptop. She filmed herself torturing children. She filmed it and kept the files. Why? James couldn't understand it. Why would she create evidence of her own crimes? To show Isla. To threaten her with. Janet Torres had seen cases like this before. Rare, but not unheard of. Classic abuser technique. See how bad you are. See what a burden I have proof. If you tell anyone, I'll show them these videos and they'll see what a terrible child you are and they'll take you away. It's twisted psychological manipulation. But it backfired, Detective Porter said grimly. Because now we have ironclad evidence. She can't explain this away. Can't claim the children are lying. Can't say it was discipline that went too far. This is deliberate, calculated, documented abuse. Arrest her, James said. Right now. Arrest her and make sure she can never hurt another child. But when they went to find Victoria, she was gone. The guest room was empty. Her clothes missing from the closet. Her car absent from the garage. And Isla, who'd been staying with Dr. Thornton and his wife for safety, was missing too. James's phone buzzed with an incoming email from Victoria's account. Subject line, "You wanted to take everything from me." He opened it with hands gone numb. A video file. Thumbnail showing Isla in what looked like a dark basement. Hands bound. Tape over her mouth. Terror stark in her eyes. James clicked play with his heart trying to escape through his ribs. The screen flickered to life. Isla sat on a concrete floor in dim light from a single bare bulb. Basement or storage unit. Impossible to tell. Victoria's hand gripped Isla's hair tight enough to make the child wince, pulling her head back at a painful angle. "Say hello to Daddy." Victoria's voice came cold and hard. Isla's eyes filled with tears behind the tape covering her mouth. She tried to speak. Muffled sounds of distress. Victoria ripped the tape off. Isla cried out in pain. "Say it! Daddy!" Isla's voice was so small, so scared. "Daddy, please help me." "Tell him this is his fault," Victoria commanded, yanking Isla's hair harder. "Please, I want to go home. Please." Victoria's face swam into frame, twisted with rage that made her unrecognizable. "You thought you could destroy me, James. Thought you could take my life away. Turn everyone against me." She laughed, sharp, bitter. "I spent 4 months setting up my perfect revenge. Getting access to your money. Making your children suffer slowly. And you ruined it because you came home one day early. Well, now I'm taking what matters most to you. Your precious daughter. Eleanor's daughter." That's what this was always about. Eleanor destroyed my career. Got me fired. Blacklisted. She took everything from me 5 years ago. So I waited. Planned. And when I saw her obituary, I knew exactly what to do. Marry her grieving widower. Get access to her perfect little family. And destroy everything she loved. I've been hurting her children for months, starving them, hitting them, making them suffer. It was delicious, but now you know. So I'm taking this one with me. You'll never see her again, James. Never! Victoria smiled into the camera. cold, empty. Come find us if you can. The video cut to black. James couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what he just witnessed. Detective Porter was already on her phone. I'm calling in FBI. This just became a kidnapping case. Within an hour, Amber Alert sirens were sounding across the state. Isla Hartley, 8 years old, blonde hair, blue-green eyes, last seen wearing purple pajamas, considered in extreme danger. Every law enforcement agency in New England mobilized. James chartered a helicopter, called in every resource he had, every contact, every favor owed to him in his decades of business. Find his daughter before Victoria did something irreversible. The next 36 hours were the longest of James Hartley's life. While Finn lay in the hospital, slowly recovering, teams of investigators hunted for any trace of Victoria and Isla. Gas station cameras, traffic cams, cell phone pings, every possible lead chased down with desperate urgency. Because everyone understood what James knew in his bones, Victoria had nothing left to lose. And desperate people with nothing to lose were capable of anything, even murder. The breakthrough came from a gas station attendant in Burlington, Vermont. Young kid named Marcus, 22, working overnight shift. He'd been scrolling social media during a slow period when the Amber Alert popped up on his phone. Blonde girl, 8 years old, purple pajamas. He'd seen her 40 minutes ago in the backseat of a rental car, face pressed against the window, mouth moving like she was trying to scream, but no sound coming out. The woman driving, dark hair, fancy coat, had paid cash for gas, bought coffee and snacks, acted completely normal. But Marcus had seen the terror in that little girl's eyes. He called a 911 immediately. I think I just saw the kidnapped kid from the Amber Alert heading north on Route 7, gray Honda Civic, license plate Yankee Bravo Hotel 492. Within minutes, every police unit in northern Vermont was converging. Detective Porter called James at 3:15 a.m. We found them. Holiday Inn outside Burlington. Room 214. SWAT is staging now. James was in his helicopter within 6 minutes, flying north through pre-dawn darkness, heart hammering so hard he thought it might crack his ribs. Below him, police lights converged on a small motel, like predators circling wounded prey. By the time James landed in the motel parking lot, the situation was already tense. SWAT in position, snipers on nearby rooftops, negotiator with megaphone, every exit sealed tight. Detective Porter met him at the police perimeter. She's got Isla in there. We know she's alive because thermal imaging shows 2 people moving. But we also know Victoria's armed. Kitchen knife from your house. Long blade. Very sharp. James felt his blood turn to ice water. Let me talk to her. Absolutely not. This is a hostage situation. She'll talk to me. She wants to talk to me. That's why she sent the video. Let me try. His voice broke. That's my 8-year-old daughter in there. Please. Detective Porter looked at him for a long moment, calculating risks. Finally nodded. 5 minutes. You'll be wired. Snipers have clear shots if things go wrong. If she makes any move to harm Isla, we breach immediately. They fated him with a microphone and earpiece. Gave him instructions that he barely registered. His entire world had narrowed to that motel room door. To Isla somewhere behind it. Scared, hurt, waiting for rescue. He thought of Eleanor. Wondered what she would do. Knew she would walk through literal fire to reach their daughter. He could do no less. James knocked on the door with his heart trying to escape through his throat. Victoria. It's James. Just me. Let me in so we can talk about this. Silence stretched like taffy. Then her voice, muffled, strange. Did you come alone? No. There are police everywhere. But they'll let us talk. Just you and me. No one else. We can work this out. Work it out. Victoria laughed. Sharp, bitter, unhinged. You destroyed everything. Turned everyone against me. Made me look like the monster. You hurt my children, James said simply. Starved my son. Beat my daughter. That's not me making you look like anything. That's what you chose to do. Because they deserved it. Eleanor deserved it. Victoria's voice rose to a shriek. She destroyed my career, got me fired, blacklisted me from ever working in healthcare again. I lost everything because of her self-righteous crusade. Then you should have come after me, not innocent children. But that wouldn't hurt Eleanor enough. The door opened a crack. Victoria's face appeared in the gap, hair wild, makeup smeared, eyes red. She loved those children more than anything, talked about them constantly, showed everyone pictures, made sure we all knew how perfect her family was while the rest of us struggled. So when I saw her obituary, it was like a gift from the universe, the perfect revenge. Marry her widower, get her money, and torture her precious children slowly. Make them suffer the way I suffered. James kept his voice calm through sheer force of will. Let me see Isla. Let me see that she's okay. Then we can talk about what happens next. The door opened wider. Isla sat on the bed inside, hands bound with duct tape in front of her, mouth covered with more tape, eyes enormous with terror. She made a muffled sound when she saw James, trying to call out to him. The sound went through his heart like a blade. You want her? Victoria reached behind her back, pulled out a kitchen knife with an 8-inch blade that caught the light. Come get her. She grabbed Isla, pulled the child against her body, put the knife to Isla's throat. The edge pressed against tender skin just hard enough to leave a thin red line without breaking through. Don't move or I'll cut her. I swear to God, I'll do it right here. James froze with his hands up, every muscle screaming to rush forward, to grab his daughter. But the blade was too close, too sharp. One wrong move and, okay, I'm not moving, I promise. Just, please don't hurt her. Please, Victoria mocked. Now you say please. You never said please when you left me alone for months with your brats. Never said please when you called from Paris or Tokyo to say you'd be gone another week. I'm sorry. I'm saying it now. I'm begging you. Please don't hurt her. Take the money, all of it. Take everything. Just let Isla go. She's my insurance now. My ticket out of here. There's no way out, Victoria. The building is surrounded. You take Isla, they follow. You hurt her. He couldn't finish the sentence. Through the window behind Victoria, James saw movement. Shadows shifting into position. SWAT getting ready. Keep her talking. Keep her focused on him. Why did you film yourself hurting them? Why create evidence? Victoria's laugh was sharp. To show Isla. To prove what a burden she was. See, you're so terrible that even I had to document it. If you tell Daddy, I'll show him these videos and he'll see how awful you really are and send you away. Perfect control mechanism. But I saw the videos. The whole world will see them. You tortured children and filmed it. There's no explaining that away. I don't care anymore. Victoria's grip on Isla tightened. The knife pressed harder. A thin trickle of blood appeared. I have nothing left. You took everything. So I'm taking her and you'll never. Everything happened at once. Isla, watching James's eyes, understood some silent signal. She bit down hard on Victoria's arm. Teeth breaking skin. Victoria screamed, loosened her grip on the knife for just a second. That second was enough. James lunged forward, grabbed Isla, pulled her toward him. The window exploded inward. Glass everywhere. Flash grenades turning the world white. SWAT poured through the door, shouting commands. James hit the floor hard, covering Isla with his body, protecting her from glass and gunfire and everything terrible in the world. Shots fired, 2 quick cracks that left his ears ringing. When the chaos settled and the smoke cleared, Victoria lay on the floor. Shot twice in the shoulder by a sniper who'd had a clear shot when she raised the knife. She was screaming, cursing, promising revenge even as officer cuffed her roughly. That brat bit me, you saw it. She attacked me, I was defending myself. This is entrapment. Police brutality. They dragged her out, still screaming. James stayed on the floor, holding Isla, pulled the tape from her mouth as gently as his shaking hands allowed. She sobbed against him, whole body convulsing with terror and relief. I've got you. I've got you, baby girl. You're safe now. I promise. I swear you're safe. Daddy. Her voice was wrecked. Is Finn okay? Finn is okay. He's getting better. He's waiting for you. She said she was going to kill us both. She said we deserved it for being Eleanor's children. She said Mommy only loved us to make her feel bad. She's sick, Ayla. Very sick and very wrong. James smoothed hair from her face with trembling fingers. You and Finn deserve everything good in the world. You deserve safety and love and happiness. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you have it. Promise? I promise on Mommy's memory. On everything I am. Isla nodded, rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Alive, safe, home. 3 months later, the trial began. Maple County Courthouse, built in 1872 from imported marble. All high ceilings and the weight of generations of justice. Victoria faced 33 criminal counts, 22 counts of child abuse, 3 counts of attempted murder, 1 count of kidnapping, 6 counts of fraud and embezzlement, 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder for tampering with Eleanor's vehicle. Yes, they'd found that too. Brake lines partially cut. Eleanor's death hadn't been complications from childbirth alone. It had been helped along by sabotage. Victoria had been planning this for 5 years, since the day Eleanor got her fired. Her defense attorney, Robert Harrison, expensive and slick, tried every angle, painted her as overwhelmed, struggling with mental illness, a victim of her own troubled childhood. But prosecutor Elizabeth Monroe was relentless. She built the case like constructing a cathedral, stone by stone, truth by truth, brick by movable brick. Medical records showing Finn's systematic starvation, the alcohol in his system, the developmental delays already visible at 6 months old, photographs of Isla's bruises, different stages of healing, a complete timeline of violence, the scars on her palms from deliberate burns, X-rays showing gold fractures in her ribs that had healed on their own without medical treatment. Dr. Thornton testified first, voice steady even as his hands shook with controlled rage. I've been a pediatrician for 32 years. I have seen accidents. I have seen terrible illnesses. I have seen families destroyed by tragedy. He paused, looked directly at Victoria. But this was deliberate. This was calculated cruelty inflicted on helpless children over an extended period. Hartley's son was being slowly poisoned. His daughter was being systematically abused and terrorized. Without intervention, I believe Finn would have died within 2 weeks. Mrs. Martinez testified through tears, described everything she'd witnessed, everything she'd been too afraid to report. Why didn't you call authorities? Harrison asked on cross-examination. Because she threatened to destroy my family, said she'd have me deported, that I'd never see my children again. Mrs. Martinez's voice broke. I was a coward. I hate myself for it, but I was so afraid. You're brave now, Prosecutor Monroe said gently. You're protecting these children now. That's what matters. Miss Sullivan testified about Isla's transformation, about the disturbing drawings, about the food hoarding, about all the warning signs that had been dismissed too easily. The neighbor testified, the liquor store owner testified, the bank manager testified, showing records of systematic theft. Each witness, another nail in Victoria's coffin of lies. Then came the evidence that made the entire courtroom gasp in collective horror. The videos. The courtroom was cleared of spectators except for immediate family. Only jury lawyers Judge and James remained. What they watched would haunt them for the rest of their lives. Prosecutor Monroe selected 12 videos from the 47, the worst ones, the most damning. Victoria berating Isla for 10 straight minutes, making her repeat, "I'm sorry I'm alive," until the child's voice gave out. Finn crying alone for 6 hours while Victoria filmed and did nothing. The moment Victoria burned Isla's hands. Audio and visual proof of deliberate torture. Victoria mixing vodka into formula bottles while explaining her technique to the camera like she was hosting a cooking show. By the time the videos finished, 3 jurors were openly crying. 2 had their heads in their hands. The forewoman looked like she wanted to climb over the box and strangle Victoria with her bare hands. Why would anyone record such things? Judge Coleman asked, her voice thick with horror. Control your honor. Prosecutor Monroe's jaw was tight with barely suppressed rage. She kept these as weapons to threaten Isla with. See how bad you are. See what a burden I have proof. If you tell anyone, I'll show them and they'll see you're terrible and send you away. Classic abuser manipulation taken to a documented extreme. The defense had nothing to say to that. And then came the moment everyone had been both waiting for and dreading. Prosecution calls Isla Hartley to the stand. The small figure rose from her seat in the front row, 8 years old, wearing a blue dress, Eleanor's favorite color, her mother's silver bracelet on her thin wrist, the stuffed bunny clutched tight in her arms. Every eye in the courtroom followed her as she walked to the witness stand, small feet in black patent leather shoes, the sound echoing in the heavy silence. She looked impossibly tiny next to the judge's massive bench, like a strong wind might blow her away into nothing. But when she sat down and looked at Prosecutor Monroe, there was something in her eyes, something that hadn't been there 4 months ago. Strength, purpose, the knowledge that speaking truth, no matter how painful, was the only way to stop this from happening to other children. Judge Coleman looked down at Isla with grandmother's eyes. Sweetheart, you understand, you're here to tell the truth, nothing but the truth. Isla nodded, voice small but clear. Yes, ma'am. And you know you're safe here. No one can hurt you in this courtroom. I won't allow it. Yes, ma'am. Good girl. Just answer the questions as best you can. Take your time. The judge's voice softened impossibly further. You're doing something very brave. Prosecutor Monroe approached slowly, carefully. Isla, can you state your full name and age for the record? Isla Marie Hartley. I'm 8 years old. And who do you live with? My daddy and my baby brother Finn. Do you remember when Victoria came to live with your family? Yes, ma'am. After my mommy died, daddy married her. What was it like at first? Isla's fingers tightened on the bunny. She was nice at first. When daddy was home, she smiled a lot, made dinner, read me stories at bedtime. And when your father wasn't home, silence. The courtroom held its collective breath. Isla, Monroe's voice stayed gentle, patient as stone. What happened when your daddy went away on business? She changed. Well, the words came whisper soft, like flipping a switch. 1 minute nice, next minute different. Different how? Mean. She'd hit me when daddy left, say bad things, scary things. What kind of bad things? Isla's eyes filled with tears. That mommy died because she didn't want me anymore. That I was a burden nobody wanted. That if I told daddy anything, she'd make Finn disappear forever, and it would be all my fault. A ripple of sound went through the courtroom. Gasps, whispers, quickly silenced. Did you believe her? Yes, ma'am. I was only 7 when it started. I didn't know what to do. I was so scared all the time. Can you tell the jury about your hands, about these scars? Isla looked down at her scarred palms, turned them over slowly so everyone could see. I tried to feed Finn extra formula once. He was so hungry, crying all the time because Victoria wouldn't feed him enough. So I snuck to the kitchen when she was in the bathroom, but she caught me. Isla's voice wavered. She turned on the stove burner, made it really hot. Then she grabbed my hands and pressed them flat on the burner. How long? Maybe 5 seconds. It felt like forever. It hurt so much I couldn't even scream. What did she say while she was doing this? That this was a lesson that I needed to learn not to interfere. That Finn was hers to manage however she wanted, not mine. That if I tried to help him again next time would be worse. Monroe let the words settle. Let the jury absorb the horror. What about your baby brother? What did Victoria do to Finn? She barely fed him. Sometimes all day, she wouldn't give him real food, just water. Or, Isla's voice dropped. Or the bad bottle. The bad bottle, with the clear stuff in it that smelled funny and made him sleep too much, made him act weird and floppy. Did you know what it was? Not at first, but I heard her on the phone once, laughing about it. She said, "A little vodka keeps babies quiet, and that's all anyone needs to know." What did you do when you found out? I tried to stop her. Tears streamed down Isla's face now. The day Daddy came home early, I saw her with that bottle. I knew it was the bad one with poison in it, so I screamed and tried to grab it away from her. But she pushed me really hard. I hit the cabinet and it hurt so much. But I didn't care about being hurt. I just wanted Finn safe. Monroe moved closer. "Isla, why didn't you tell your father sooner? Why wait so long?" "Because I was scared. She said she'd make Finn disappear if I told. That it would be my fault. That no one would believe me anyway because I'm just a kid and she's a grown-up." Isla wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "And I promised Mommy, right before she died in the hospital, I promised I'd protect Finn no matter what. So I had to keep quiet even when Victoria hurt me. Because keeping Finn alive was more important than anything. You kept that promise, didn't you?" "I tried. I tried so hard, but I almost failed. Finn almost died anyway." "No, Isla." Monroe's voice was firm. "You didn't fail. You saved him. You saved your brother's life. Do you understand that?" Isla shook her head. "He almost died. That's my fault." "No, that's Victoria's fault. She's the adult. She's the one who chose to hurt you. You're the hero of this story, not the villain. Never the villain." Harrison stood. Objection, leading the witness. Sustained. But Judge Coleman's eyes were wet. Monroe stepped back. "Your witness." Harrison approached the stand. He smoothed his expensive tie, put on his most sympathetic face. "Isla, I know this is very difficult. I just have a few questions for you." She looked at him, small, wary, brave. "Isn't it true that you sometimes felt jealous of Victoria? That you didn't want your father to have a new wife?" "No, sir." "No, you weren't upset that someone was replacing your mother." "I wanted to like her. I wanted Daddy to be happy again. I wanted us to be a real family. But things didn't work out that way." "No, sir. Because she hurt us. Because she was mean when Daddy wasn't looking." Children sometimes make up stories to get attention, don't they? To feel special. Isla's voice strengthened. "I didn't make this up. I wish I did. I wish it was just a made-up story and none of it was real." "How do we know you're telling the truth right now?" "Because I have proof." Isla held up the bunny. "Mommy gave me this the day before she went to the hospital. She said if I was ever really scared to look inside and remember she loved me. So I put everything in here. My diary, where I wrote down everything Victoria did. The USB with recordings I made on my iPad. Pictures I took of my bruises." She looked directly at Harrison with 8-year-old steel in her gaze. "I'm 8, but I'm not stupid. I knew I needed proof because grown-ups don't always believe kids." Harrison faltered visibly. No further questions." "Redirect," Judge Coleman asked. "Just one question, Your Honor." Monroe approached again. "Isla, why are you speaking up now? Why tell everyone what happened?" Isla was quiet for a long moment, thinking carefully about her answer. "Because Finn almost died. Because I kept thinking about other kids. If Victoria could hurt us, maybe she hurt other kids before us. Maybe she'd hurt more kids after if nobody stopped her." Her voice grew stronger with conviction. "And Mommy always said, do what's right even when it's hard. This is the hardest thing I ever did in my whole life. But it's right, other kids need to be safe from her." The courtroom erupted in applause. Judge Coleman didn't stop it. Let it wash over Isla like a wave, like validation, like proof that speaking truth mattered more than staying silent. When it finally quieted, Monroe said, "No further questions, Your Honor. This child has said everything that needs saying. You may step down, Isla." The judge smiled through tears. "You did beautifully, sweetheart. Your mother would be so proud of you." Isla climbed down from the witness stand, walked to where James sat in the front row. He pulled her into his arms, held her, while she shook with released terror and exhaustion. "So proud," he whispered. So proud of my brave girl." Behind them, Victoria sat with her mask completely shattered, but her hands trembled with rage. The prosecution rested after two more witnesses. Dr. Thornton provided additional expert testimony on the medical evidence. Detective Porter walked the jury through the investigation, the kidnapping, the motel standoff, the knife at Isla's throat. When she finished, there wasn't a dry eye anywhere in the courtroom. The defense tried to mount a case, but it was pathetic. They called a psychiatrist who testified about Victoria's difficult childhood, her struggles with attachment, her inability to bond properly. But did she intend to harm these children? Harrison pressed desperately. "I believe she was overwhelmed and made extremely poor choices under stress." On cross-examination, Prosecutor Monroe destroyed him in under 3 minutes. "Doctor, in your professional opinion, does being overwhelmed cause someone to burn a child's hands on a hot stove?" "Well, no, but does stress cause someone to poison an infant with vodka?" "Not typically, but does difficulty bonding explain filming yourself psychologically, torturing a child for your own amusement?" "No. Thank you, doctor. Nothing further." Harrison made one fatal mistake. He put Victoria on the stand. She dressed carefully for it. Conservative suit, hair pulled back, minimal makeup, trying so hard to look sympathetic, maternal, misunderstood. It backfired spectacularly. "Mrs. Ashford, can you explain your relationship with Isla and Finn?" "I tried my best. I really truly did. I married James wanting to help, to be a good mother to those children." Her voice trembled with practiced emotion. "But it was so difficult. James was gone constantly for work. The baby cried all the time. Isla resented me from day one. I was alone and overwhelmed." "Gimmer, did you ever harm the children?" "I disciplined them when necessary." "That's not the same as harm. Children need structure. They need consequences for bad behavior." "And the alcohol in Finn's bottle?" "That was gripe water, an old family remedy. My grandmother used it with all her babies. I had no idea it was considered dangerous now." "The burns on Isla's hands?" "A tragic accident. She reached for the stove while I was cooking. I tried to stop her, but I wasn't fast enough." "Mrs. Ashford." Monroe stood for cross-examination, voice sharp as a blade. "You testified that giving vodka to an infant was an old remedy." "Gripe water, yes. Gripe water hasn't contained alcohol since 1982. You're 33 years old. Your grandmother would have to be quite elderly to remember that formulation." Victoria's face tightened. "It's what I was told." "By whom specifically?" "I don't remember exactly." "Convenient." Monroe picked up a document. "Let's talk about the medical evidence. Finn weighed 12 pounds at 6 months. He should have weighed close to 18. Where did those 6 pounds go?" "Babies develop differently." Dr. Okonvo testified this was severe life-threatening malnutrition, not different development. Starvation. "I fed him what he needed. Water. You fed him water and vodka, while you spent $45,000 on designer clothes and jewelry." Victoria's composure cracked. "I deserved nice things. I was working hard, caring for someone else's children. So you starved them to buy Gucci handbags. That's a complete mischaracterization." "Let's talk about the videos, Mrs. Ashford. 47 videos you recorded yourself. Of abuse, of neglect, of torture." Monroe's voice rose with righteous fury. "You filmed yourself making an 8-year-old repeat, 'I'm sorry I'm alive,' over 50 times while you laughed." "Why?" "I was documenting her bad behavior. By forcing her to apologize for existing, she was difficult and ungrateful. She was 7 years old and grieving her mother." Monroe slammed the document down. "You filmed yourself watching Finn cry for 6 hours without feeding him. You laughed on camera. You laughed at an infant's suffering. Why?" "He needed to learn. He was 6 months old." "What exactly did you think a 6-month-old baby needed to learn?" Victoria's face went red, then white. "You don't understand. You don't know what it's like. Living in a dead woman's shadow. Those children looked at me like I was nothing, like I could never replace their precious, perfect Eleanor." So you heard them? Yes. The word exploded out before she could stop it. Yes, I heard them. And they deserved every bit of it. Eleanor destroyed my entire career, got me fired, ruined my life. When I saw her obituary, I thought perfect revenge. I'd marry her husband, take his money, make her precious, perfect children suffer. She loved them so much, bragged about them constantly. I wanted to destroy what she loved most. The courtroom went dead silent. Harrison's face went chalk white. Victoria seemed to realize what she'd confessed. Her hand flew to her mouth, but it was far too late. The truth was out, recorded by the court reporter, witnessed by 12 jurors. Undeniable. So this was never about being overwhelmed, Monroe said quietly, calmly. This was premeditated revenge against a dead woman, enacted on innocent children over 4 months of calculated torture. Victoria said nothing, couldn't meet anyone's eyes. I have no further questions. Judge Coleman looked at Victoria with pure disgust. Step down, Mrs. Ashford. Victoria walked back to the defense table on shaking legs. Harrison leaned over, whispered urgently, but there was nothing left to say. She'd confessed, on the witness stand, under oath, to everything. Closing arguments the next day were mercifully brief. Harrison tried to salvage something from the wreckage, talked about mental illness, diminished capacity, a troubled woman who'd made terrible mistakes but didn't deserve to have her life destroyed. The jury's faces showed what they thought of that argument. Monroe's closing was devastating in its simplicity. Ladies and gentlemen, this case is about many things, but at its core it's about a choice. Victoria Ashford had a choice. When she married James Hartley, she could have chosen to love his children, to honor their mother's memory, to help a grieving family heal. Instead, she chose revenge. She chose cruelty. She chose to systematically torture 2 helpless children for 4 months. And she did it methodically, deliberately, with planning and calculation. She burned an 8-year-old's hands for trying to feed her starving brother. She poisoned a 6-month-old infant with alcohol to keep him quiet. She locked Isla in closets, denied her food for days, made her apologize for being alive. And when she thought she might be caught, she kidnapped that same 8-year-old child, held a knife to her throat, was fully prepared to kill her rather than face justice. The defense wants you to believe this was about stress, about being overwhelmed. But overwhelmed people don't record videos of themselves laughing at children's pain. They don't plan revenge for 5 years. They don't steal $200,000 and hide it offshore. They don't cut brake lines on vehicles. This was calculated. This was evil. This is unforgivable. And that 8-year-old girl, she survived. She protected her brother despite enormous personal cost. She gathered evidence with extraordinary courage. She spoke truth in this courtroom despite being terrified. She kept a sacred promise to her dying mother. Now it's time for us to keep our promise to her. The promise that the justice system works, that evil gets punished, that children matter, that the vulnerable are protected. Find Victoria Ashford guilty on every single count. Give Isla and Finn the justice they've earned through their suffering. The jury deliberated for 3 hours and 17 minutes. When they filed back in, their faces were grim masks of determination. The 4 women stood, elderly woman with steel in her spine and fire in her eyes. On count 1 child abuse in the first degree, we find the defendant guilty. Victoria's face went pale. On count 2 child abuse in the first degree, we find the defendant guilty. The 4 women continued through all 33 counts with unwavering clarity. Guilty, 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 guilty. By count 15, Victoria started shaking. By count 20, tears streamed down her face. By count 33, conspiracy to commit murder, she stood up screaming incoherently. That brat is lying. All of you are lying. I did nothing wrong. They deserved everything they got. Eleanor deserved to die. Those children deserved. Sit down immediately. Judge Coleman's voice cracked like a whip. Bailiffs. 2 officers grabbed Victoria, tried to force her back into her seat. She fought them viciously, clawing, spitting, screaming obscenities that made several jurors flinch. Those children ruined everything. I should have killed them both when I had the chance. Should have finished what I started. They're not even worth. Remove her from my courtroom, Judge Coleman ordered. They dragged Victoria out, still screaming, still promising violence, still showing everyone exactly what she truly was beneath the mask. A monster, pure, simple, undeniable. When the doors closed behind her, the entire courtroom exhaled as one. Judge Coleman looked at the jury with deep respect. Thank you for your service in this extraordinarily difficult case. Sentencing will be scheduled for 1 week from today. The gavel came down. Final. James pulled Isla close. She was crying, but this time from relief. Is it really over? She whispered. Almost, baby. Almost. The sentencing hearing happened on a cold Tuesday morning, exactly 1 week later. Isla didn't attend. James decided to protect her from Victoria's final appearance, from having to see the monster one last time. But the courtroom was packed anyway. Miss Whitfield sat in the front row. Mrs. Martinez beside her, wiping tears. Miss Sullivan, Dr. Thornton, Father O'Brien, Detective Porter, a community that had failed Isla once, but would never fail her again. Victim impact statements were read with raw emotion. Dr. Thornton spoke about Finn's ongoing medical issues, the developmental delays from alcohol exposure, the feeding problems, the way he still startled violently at loud sudden noises. But he's alive, the doctor said with his voice breaking, because his sister saved him at tremendous cost to herself. She's the real hero of this tragedy. Mrs. Martinez spoke through tears about nightmares, about guilt, about what-ifs that haunted her. I should have been braver, should have protected those babies. I'll carry that regret until I die. Miss Sullivan read a statement from the school counselor about Isla's long road ahead. Isla will need therapy for years, possibly forever. The psychological damage from this systematic abuse is profound and lasting. But she's resilient beyond measure. She's strong. She'll heal. Because she has people who love her now, who believe her, who will fight for her. Finally, James stood. He'd written a 10-page statement. But when the moment came, he set it aside, spoke from his broken heart instead. Your Honor, I failed my children in the worst way possible. I chose work over family, ignored warning signs, let a predator into our home, and gave her complete access to the most precious parts of my world. I'll live with that guilt for the rest of my life. I'll never forgive myself completely. But Victoria Ashford, she's not a victim of circumstance. She's not overwhelmed. She's not struggling with mental illness that excuses her actions. She's evil in its purest form. She saw vulnerable children and chose to destroy them for money, for revenge against a woman who couldn't defend herself because she was dead. My 8-year-old daughter has more courage, more strength, more basic humanity in her little finger than Victoria has in her entire body. Isla kept a sacred promise to her dying mother, protected her brother, gathered evidence despite being terrified, spoke truth in this court. She's the hero. Victoria is the villain. I'm asking this court to ensure Victoria never has the opportunity to hurt another child, ever, for any reason, for the rest of her natural life. He is sat down to silence. Victoria was brought in, hands cuffed behind her back, orange jumpsuit, hair lank and unwashed, makeup gone. She looked smaller somehow, diminished, defeated. Judge Coleman stared at her for a long moment with undisguised contempt. Mrs. Ashford, do you have anything to say before I impose sentence? Victoria lifted her chin with the last shreds of defiance. Those children deserved everything they got. Eleanor deserved to die. I regret nothing except getting caught. Even her own lawyer flinched at the words. Judge Coleman's expression hardened into stone. Stand! Victoria stood on shaking legs. Victoria Ann Ashford. In my 30 years on this bench, I have rarely encountered such calculated cruelty toward the innocent. Children are a sacred trust. They deserve protection, love and safety. You betrayed that trust in the most heinous way possible. You systematically tortured an 8-year-old girl for 4 months. You poisoned an infant. You stole from the family that took you in. You plotted revenge against the dead woman by harming her innocent children. You attempted to murder your own husband's first wife by tampering with her vehicle. And even now, even after everything, you show no remorse, no understanding of the magnitude of your crimes, no capacity for empathy or change. You are a danger to children, to society, to any vulnerable person who might cross your path. On counts 1 through 22 child abuse in the first degree, I sentence you to 15 years in state prison on each count to run consecutively. That's 330 years. On count 23, attempted murder of Isla Hartley, I sentence you to 25 years. On count 24, attempted murder of Finn Hartley, I sentence you to 25 years. On count 25, conspiracy to commit murder of Eleanor Hartley, I sentence you to 25 years. On count 26, kidnapping, I sentence you to 20 years. On counts 27 through 32, fraud and embezzlement, I sentence you to 5 years each to run consecutively. On count 33, conspiracy, I sentence you to 20 years. Total sentence, 450 years in state prison, without any possibility of parole, ever. You will die in prison, Mendes Ashford, and you will deserve every single moment of it. May God have mercy on your soul, because I have none. The gavel came down like thunder, final, absolute, justice. Victoria's knees buckled. Bailiffs caught her, half carried, half dragged her toward the door. She started screaming again. This isn't fair. This isn't justice. Those children they ruined, I should have... The doors closed, cut off her voice mid-sentence, and just like that it was over. James sat in the courtroom, surrounded by people who'd become family, and felt something unknot in his chest that had been twisted tight for months. Justice. Finally. Justice for his children. Justice for Eleanor. Justice. Here's a condensed version reduced from 1/500 to 850 words. Not easily, but they passed, and with them came healing. Isla's nightmares gradually faded. Therapy with Dr. Amanda Foster helped her understand she was brave, not broken. Finn thrived, small for his age, but healthy, energetic, joyful. He didn't remember Victoria. For that, James was grateful daily. James sold the big house, bought a smaller place in the countryside with wide windows and a garden, cut his travel by 80%. His children couldn't wait. He'd learned that lesson the hardest way. Mrs. Whitfield became family. Isla discovered her talent for painting bright works full of light and hope. I like happy things now, she explained. I want to put more light into the world. Eleanor's handwriting, to Isla to be opened on your 13th birthday. Inside a letter. My darling girl, you kept your promise. You protected Finn. That makes you a hero. But now you're allowed to be happy, to laugh, to not always be the strong one. You did your job. You saved him. Now let yourself be saved. Let people love you. Let yourself believe you deserve good things. I'm proud of you. So incredibly proud. When you paint, I'm watching. When you laugh, I'm smiling. Love isn't bound by death, it transcends it. Be happy, my brave girl. That's all I ever wanted. Love always. Mommy. Isla framed it beside her bed. A daily reminder she was loved, she'd kept her promise, she was allowed to be happy. A shelter for abused children. Every Saturday, she taught art therapy to kids ages 6 to 12. I was 8 when someone hurt me, she'd tell them. I thought I'd be broken forever, but I'm not. I'm happy now. And you will be too. They believed her. She was living proof that healing was possible. Finn 7 now sat in the front row, beaming. When I was 8, someone tried to destroy me, Isla began. For 4 months, I carried secrets too heavy to bear. I was terrified every day. But I learned your voice matters. One person can change everything. If you're hurting, tell someone. Keep telling until someone believes you. You deserve safety. You deserve love. You are never alone. I kept a promise to my mother. I protected my brother. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. But I do it again because love is stronger than fear. Truth is stronger than lies. And good always wins. So be brave. Speak your truth. Your voice might save a life, maybe even your own. The auditorium erupted in applause. Standing ovation. Many crying. Isla stood there 16 years old, no longer that terrified 8-year-old. Whole, scarred but whole, and finally free. They sat under the oak tree in comfortable silence. "I'm proud of you," he said. "We saved each other," Isla replied, leaning against him. "Dad, I'm happy now. Really, truly happy. Is that okay?" "That's everything, sweetheart. That's what your mom wanted most. I think she'd like who I'm becoming. I know she would." A woman reading this story set down her tablet. 71. Grandmother moved deeply. She thought about the children in her life, her community, her church. Were any hiding secrets like Isla had? She picked up her phone, called her daughter. "We need to really watch out for the kids. Make sure they're truly okay, deep down safe." One conversation, one person paying attention. That's how children get saved. If you know a child suffering in silence, be their voice. Be their shield. One person can change a life. Isla proved it. Now it's your turn. What moved you most? Share below. Your words might save a life. God bless you. Thank you for caring.